It was the start of summer break, and 6 high school students had signed up for a study trip to a small village in northern Europe. The village was quiet, surrounded by forests and old stone houses. The people were kind, but they didn't talk much to strangers. They seemed afraid of something, but the students didn't notice. They were too busy having fun. The group included Lena, smart and serious; Mark, funny and a little reckless; Tasha, brave and curious; Alex, the quiet one; Nina, cheerful and friendly; Jordan, always on his phone. They stayed in a big, wooden house near the woods. It was old but cozy. A woman named Madame Elka owned the house. She was tall, wore black clothes, and had long silver hair. She spoke very softly and always looked behind her, like she was watching for someone. On their 3rd night, it rained hard. The power went out. Bored and stuck inside, the group sat around a fire in the living room. "I found something weird upstairs," Mark said, holding a small black box. It was under the floorboard. He opened the box. Inside were 6 old wooden pieces, like small tokens, and a folded piece of paper. The paper had a title written in red ink: "The Forbidden Game." "What is it?" Nina asked. "Looks like a game," Mark said. "Want to try it?" Lena frowned. "Maybe it's dangerous. Forbidden doesn't sound like fun." But Jordan laughed. "Come on, it's just an old village thing. Probably nothing." Curious, they sat in a circle. Mark read the rules aloud. To play the game, place a token in front of you. Close your eyes. Say the name of what you fear most. Do not lie. If you lie, the game will know. If you cheat, the game will punish. If you stop playing, you will never leave. They laughed nervously. Tasha shrugged. "Sounds creepy, but I'm in." One by one, they placed the tokens in front of them. "I'm afraid of drowning," said Tasha. "Snakes," said Jordan. "Losing control," whispered Lena. "Being watched," said Alex. "Being alone," said Nina. Mark smiled. "I'm not scared of anything." The fire suddenly flickered. The room felt colder. The floor creaked. The lights came back on, but they were dim and yellow, like candlelight. Then they heard it, a knock on the front door. They froze. It was midnight. Who would knock at this hour? Mark stood up. Probably just the wind. But the knock came again. Slower. Harder. Knock. 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 Madame Elka ran into the room, her face pale. "What did you do?" she whispered. "We played a game. Just a silly game," said Nina. Madame Elka looked at the black box. Her hands shook. "You didn't play a game. You opened a door." The door knocked again, but no one moved. Elka backed away. "You must never open that door. Never." Then she turned and left the house. The room was quiet, until suddenly the fire went out. The front door slowly creaked open on its own. There was no one there, just darkness. But they all heard the whisper, "Welcome to the game." The door stood wide open. Cold air blew into the room. The candles flickered, then died. The 6 students stood frozen, staring into the dark outside. There was no one there, but they all felt something watching them. "Close it," Lena whispered. "Close the door." Mark rushed forward and slammed the door shut. But the cold didn't go away. The house still felt wrong. "What the hell was that?" Jordan said, his voice shaking. "Was that part of the game?" "No," said Lena. "This isn't a game anymore." Nina turned to the box. The tokens were still on the floor, but now they looked darker, almost burned. In the middle of the circle, a small piece of paper had appeared. It read, "Round 1 begins. The fear of water will rise." Tasha gasped. Water, that's my fear. Everyone stared at her. I said I was afraid of drowning. A sound came from the kitchen. A slow, dripping noise. Drip, drip, drip. Alex slowly walked toward the kitchen. The others followed, staying close. When they reached the door, they saw something strange. Water. It was pouring from the sink. The tap was off, but water still came out. The floor was wet. The water had a dark color, almost red. Tasha stepped back. No, this isn't happening. Suddenly the kitchen window cracked, then shattered. Rain began to fall. Inside the room, the walls started to drip. Water poured down from the ceiling like it was raining indoors. It's just water, Mark said. Let's just get out of here. He ran to the front door and pulled it open, but outside, there was no village, no trees, no road, only water, endless black water. The house was floating in the middle of a dark sea. No, 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 whispered Nina. This can't be real. They shut the door and turned back toward the kitchen. Tasha was gone. Tasha? Lena called. Where are you? Then they heard a scream from the basement. Without thinking, they rushed down the stairs. The basement was dark and wet. Water covered the floor. It was rising. Tasha! Alex shouted. They saw her, floating face up in the corner. Her eyes were wide open. Her mouth was full of water. Lena jumped into the water and pulled her up. Tasha gasped and coughed, alive but shaking. I couldn't move, she said. The water was pulling me down, like hands. I saw something under the water. They carried her upstairs and wrapped her in blankets. The water in the house slowly stopped. The windows repaired themselves. The floor dried. Everything returned to normal, almost. The tokens were still there, and another note had appeared. Round 1 complete. Round 2 begins at midnight, Jordan. Picked it up and read the back. Each round brings one fear to life. Only one can win the game. The rest must survive or disappear. No one slept that night. They waited. Midnight was coming. The old clock in the hallway struck midnight. Dong, dong, dong. The sound echoed through the house. Everyone sat in the living room, silent and afraid. Tasha was wrapped in a blanket, still shaking from what happened in the basement. The black box sat in the middle of them again. The tokens had moved. No one had touched them. Now, Jordan's token was glowing red. A new piece of paper appeared, slowly sliding out from under the box. Round 2 begins. The fear of scales and fangs will slither. Jordan stood up. Okay, this is insane. I didn't sign up for this. You said you were scared of snakes, Lena said softly. That doesn't mean they should come to life, Jordan yelled. Then they heard it, a soft hissing sound. Quiet, faint, but getting louder. Hiss! Nina covered her ears. Where's it coming from? Mark grabbed a flashlight. We need to check. They followed the sound into the hallway. The light flickered as they walked. The walls seemed longer than before, the ceiling higher. The house was changing again. They reached the end of the hallway. A small wooden door stood there. It hadn't been there before. The hissing was louder. Now, Jordan was breathing hard. Don't open it. But Alex reached out. He turned the old brass knob and opened the door. Nothing was there. Just a long, narrow tunnel. And it was full of snakes, hundreds of them, crawling over each other, hissing, their eyes glowing in the dark. Jordan screamed, "Shut it! Shut the door!" They slammed it shut. But it didn't matter. Snakes began to pour out from the cracks in the walls, from under the floorboards, from the shadows. "Get on the table," Tasha yelled. They all climbed onto furniture, chairs, sofas, anything to stay above the ground. Jordan was panicking. They're everywhere. I can feel them under my skin. He cried. No, they're not touching you. Nina said, just stay still. But Jordan didn't listen. He jumped off the table and ran. No, Lena yelled. Jordan, stop. He ran toward the front door, but slipped on a snake. He fell hard. The snakes swarmed over him. He screamed as they wrapped around his legs, his arms, his throat. Then, silence. The snakes slithered away. Jordan was gone. The others ran to the spot. Nothing was there. No blood, no clothes, no trace. Only his token, now cracked in half, laying on the floor. Lena picked it up, her hands shaking. He's gone. Another note appeared in the box. Round 2 complete. 5 remain. Round 3 begins at midnight. Mark backed away. No more. I'm done. But the house didn't care. The game had already chosen the next fear. The clock was ticking, and midnight was coming again. The night was heavy with silence after Jordan disappeared. No one spoke for a long time. The house was quiet again, but it didn't feel safe. It felt like the walls were listening. Mark sat in the corner, shaking his head. This isn't a game. This is a trap. We're going to die here. No, Lena said. We're not dead yet. We can still find a way out. But how? Nina asked. We tried to leave. There was only water. The village is gone. The house changes. It's alive. Alex stood near the window, staring into the darkness. It's the game. We started it. We have to finish it. As the old clock struck midnight again, they all held their breath. Dong, dong, dong. A cold wind blew through the house. Even though all the windows were closed, the lights dimmed. The fire went out. The black box began to shake. A soft humming sound filled the room. Then another message appeared on the floor, written in black ink. Round 3 begins. The fear of being watched will see you. Everyone looked at Alex. He didn't move. You said you were scared of being watched, Nina whispered. He nodded slowly. I've always felt like someone was there, in the dark, watching me, even when I was alone. Suddenly all the lights in the house went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Flashlights, Lena said. They used their phones, turning on the lights. The beams were weak, but better than nothing. Then the whispers began. Soft voices, too quiet to understand, but they were coming from everywhere. And then the eyes appeared, dozens of them, in the walls, in the ceiling, in the shadows, glowing white, unblinking, watching. Don't look at them, Alex said. Don't look directly at them. But Mark turned toward the wall and screamed. They're inside. They're looking inside my head. He fell to the floor, holding his head, shaking. Alex turned off his flashlight. What are you doing? Nina shouted. If you don't see them, they don't see you, Alex said, his voice trembling. It's how the fear works. The others followed, turning off their lights. Now they stood in total darkness. The whispers grew louder. Then silence. A breath. Right behind Lena's ear. She turned sharply. Nothing was there. Where's Alex? Tasha whispered. A beam of light appeared. Alex's flashlight was on again, but it was on the floor, in the hallway. He was gone. They ran to the hallway and picked up his phone. It was still recording, still shining light on the walls, but Alex had vanished. Only his token was left behind, now burned and cracked. Another note appeared. Round 3 complete. 4 remain. Round 4 begins at midnight. Lena grabbed the note and crushed it in her hand. No more. We have to stop this. But Nina said something none of them wanted to hear. "We can't stop. We already started." Mark looked at Lena. "Who's next?" They all turned to the tokens. The one glowing, red now, was Nina's, and the next fear was being alone. Only 4 were left: Lena, Mark, Tasha, and Nina. They stayed close together now, too afraid to be alone. They didn't eat. They didn't sleep. They just waited for the next midnight. Nina sat on the couch, holding her knees to her chest. Her token now glowed red. Her fear was next. "I don't want to be alone," she said softly. "Not like truly alone, not where no one can hear me." "We're not going to let that happen," Lena said. "We'll stay with you, no matter what." Tasha nodded. "We're stronger together." But the house didn't care. Midnight came. Dong, dong, dong. The house began to shake. The air grew heavy. The lights flickered, then went black. A loud sound cracked through the air like glass shattering. Then darkness. Not just any darkness. Complete, total, empty. Lena reached for Mark's hand. It wasn't there. She looked around, but she couldn't see anyone. No sound, no light, just black. "Nina?" she called out. "Tasha? Mark?" No answer. She was alone. So was Mark, and Tasha, and Nina. Each of them had been pulled into their own space, separate, empty, and silent. Nina stood in a hallway she didn't recognize. It was long and narrow. Every step she took echoed loudly. Her voice shook as she called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" No one answered. She ran to a door and opened it. Another hallway, empty, then another and another. She turned back, but the hallway behind her was gone. The house was changing again. It wanted her to be lost and alone. Back in her space, Lena shouted into the dark, "This isn't real. It's just fear. It's just part of the game." But the dark didn't answer. Nina's hands shook as she reached another door. She opened it and gasped. Inside was a copy of her bedroom from back home. Same posters, same bed, same light blue walls, but no windows, no door behind her. She stepped inside. The room felt cold and wrong. She walked to the desk and saw something written on the wall in red. "You will be alone forever." "No," she said. "No, I won't." The light in the room turned red. The bed began to melt. The floor cracked, and then she fell. Fell through black air, like falling through a dream. She landed hard in the center of the house's living room, and there were the others, Lena, Mark, and Tasha, also falling from the darkness above, hitting the wooden floor. They all looked at each other in shock. They were back, together, but Nina was crying. "I thought I would never see you again," she whispered. "I thought I was going to die alone." Lena hugged her. "You didn't. You made it." Mark looked at the box. Lana's token was black and cracked. Another note appeared. "Round 4 complete. 3 fears remain." But this time, something was different. No, new token glowed. Instead, a message appeared on the wall, written in thick black ink. "The game grows hungry. 1 round will be chosen at random." Mark stood. "What does that mean?" The box began to shake again, and 1 token rose from the center, spinning in the air. Before landing on the floor, the red glow spread from the wood to Mark's token. Lena whispered, "It's your turn." And everyone already knew what Mark's fear was. He feared nothing, and that meant the game would choose something for him. The room was quiet. Too quiet. Mark's token glowed red now. He stared at it. confused and scared for the first time. "I told you," he whispered. "I'm not afraid of anything." But the others knew what that meant. The game would choose for him. The black box shook again. Then slowly, a new message appeared. Round 5 begins. No fear, no choice. The unknown will hunt. The fire in the fireplace turned blue. A cold wind moved through the house like something breathing nearby, but nothing could be seen. "What does it mean?" Nina asked. Tasha looked around nervously. If the fear is unknown, it could be anything. Mark stood up. "I'm not afraid. Whatever it is, I'll deal with it." Lena grabbed his arm. "This isn't like before. This round isn't your fear. It's the game's fear." Suddenly, every candle in the house blew out. The lights died. Then came a sound none of them could explain. Knock, knock, knock. But it wasn't coming from the door. It was coming from inside the walls. "Mark," Nina whispered. "It's coming. For you." The floorboards creaked. The ceiling groaned. Something was moving between the walls. Something big. They ran to the hallway, but the walls were changing again, stretching, closing in. Doors vanished. Windows disappeared. The house was twisting into a maze. "Stay together," Lena shouted, but the hallway split. Lena, Tasha, and Nina ended up on one side. Mark was on the other. "Mark!" Tasha screamed. "I'm okay," he yelled back. "I'll find a way around." He turned and started running, but the hallway behind him stretched longer and longer, like the house was pushing him deeper inside. Then it appeared. Something that couldn't be described. It had no face, no form. It was made of shadows, smoke, and whispers. A shape that moved like liquid. It crawled across the walls, ceiling, and floor at once. Mark backed away. "What are you?" The thing didn't answer. It mimicked his voice. "I'm not afraid of anything," it said, in a broken version of his voice. Then it laughed. Mark ran. He turned every corner, opened every door, but the hallways never led out. The thing followed, him always just behind. Every time he looked back, it was closer. Then he found a mirror. He stopped. In the reflection, he saw not just himself, but dozens of versions of him, all screaming, all afraid, all being dragged into the shadows. He closed his eyes. "This isn't real. This isn't real." But when he opened his eyes again, he was back in the living room with the others. "Mark," Nina asked, "are you okay?" He stood there, breathing hard, but something was wrong. He didn't answer. Lena stepped closer. "Mark." Then she saw it. His eyes. They weren't his. They were black, completely black. He smiled, but not like Mark. "Mark's not here anymore," the voice said. He met the unknown, and the unknown liked him. Then his body collapsed, gone. Only his cracked token remained. The box opened once more. Round 5 complete. 2 remain. Tasha turned to Lena and Nina, tears in her eyes. "We're running out of time." Only 3 remained. Lena, Tasha, Nina. They sat in the middle of the living room. The walls were cracked. The windows were black. The air felt thick, like breathing smoke. Mark was gone. His cracked token lay on the floor, cold and black. Tasha's hands were shaking. "It's getting worse. Every round is darker." Lena nodded. "It's like the house is feeding on us." Nina whispered, "Whose fear is next?" They all turned to the box. Tasha's token was glowing now, bright red. Lena reached for her. "What did you say your fear was?" Tasha swallowed. "I said I was afraid of drowning, but I lied." The air went still. "You lied to the game," Nina whispered. "I didn't mean to," Tasha said. I was scared to say it out loud. "What is it really?" Lena asked gently. Tasha looked down. "Fire. I'm scared of fire. Not just being burned. I watched our house burn down when I was 6. I couldn't move. I could only watch. My mom got me out, but..." She didn't finish the sentence. Then the old clock struck again. Dong, dong, dong. Round 6 begins. Fire that never stops. The lights turned orange. Heat filled the room. Then smoke began to pour in from under the walls. "The house is burning," Nina cried. "No," Lena said. "It's making her fear real." Tasha backed into the corner. No, I can't do this." The smoke grew thicker. Sparks flew from the ceiling. The wooden walls began to blacken, as if something invisible was setting them on fire. And then the fire came. But it didn't burn like normal fire. It moved like it was alive, like it was hunting. It formed long arms, reaching. Tasha screamed, "It's coming for me!" Lena grabbed her hand. "We're not leaving you." But the floor under Tasha cracked. A glowing hole opened, full of fire and ash. Lena and Nina held on tight. The heat burned their arms, but they didn't let go. "You're not going down," Lena shouted, but the fire hissed, louder than before, and a wave of flame burst up. Nina screamed and let go for just 1 second. That was enough. Tasha slipped. She fell into the hole, reaching out, her eyes wide with fear. Then the fire vanished, the hole closed, and Tasha was gone. Only her burned token remained. The house went silent. Lena and Nina sat on the floor, coughing, shaking, crying. Then a new message burned into the floorboards. In front of them, one final round. The game will decide. "No," Lena said. "There's only 2 of us. There has to be a way to stop this." But Nina looked at her. Something in her eyes had changed. "What if the game only ends when one of us wins?" she said quietly. Lena's face turned pale. "You think one of us has to lose?" Nina didn't answer. They sat there. The clock ticked. Midnight was coming, and the final round was about to begin. The air was cold, too cold. The fire was gone. The smoke had cleared, but the house felt more dangerous than ever. Only Lena and Nina remained. They sat on the wooden floor in silence. Tasha was gone. Her burned token lay between them. The other 4 tokens were still there, cracked, black, empty. Now only one token glowed red. But it wasn't Lena's, and it wasn't Nina's. It was both of theirs. The red glow moved between the 2 tokens, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lena picked hers up slowly. "What does this mean?" Nina looked at her. "I think this is the final round." A loud crack echoed through the house. The walls began to change. Doors disappeared. The staircase twisted into the ceiling. The floor beneath them shook, and the house reshaped itself into a single, long hallway. At the end of it, one door, a single white door with a black symbol carved into it. A circle, split in half. Then the box spoke for the first time. A deep, ancient voice filled the air. "Round 7 begins. The final fear, betrayal." Nina's face turned pale. "No, not that." Lena looked at her, confused. "What does it mean?" But she already knew. The game was forcing them to choose. Only one could leave. Only one could win. The other would be taken. Nina stood. "This is it. This is why it's called the Forbidden Game." It was never about fear. It was about trust. Lena got to her feet, shaking. "We don't have to do this. We can beat the game together." Nina shook her head. That's not how it works. You saw what it did to the others. It always ends when someone's gone. The hallway stretched longer. The white door pulsed like a heartbeat. Nina stepped forward. Maybe the door leads out. Maybe it's freedom. Lena followed her. Then we'll go through it together. But when they reached it, the voice spoke again. Only one may open the door. Only one may leave. A long silence followed. Then a knife appeared on the ground between them. Simple. Old. Covered in dust. Lena stared at it. No, she whispered. This is what it wants. It wants us to fight. Nina didn't speak. She just looked at the door. Lena picked up the knife and threw it down the hallway, far away. I'm not playing anymore, she said. Suddenly the walls screamed. A loud, terrible sound filled the house. The floor cracked beneath them. The shadows grew taller, reaching out. The voice returned. Angrier now. If you do not choose, the game will choose for you. Nina looked at Lena. Her eyes were full of fear and something else. Tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then she ran toward the knife. Nina, no, Lena shouted, but it was too late. Nina grabbed the knife. Lena stepped back, raising her hands. Don't do this, please. We're friends. Nina stood still, breathing hard. Then she turned the knife around and handed it to Lena. You choose, she said. I trust you. Lena stared at her. The shadows swirled around them. The house was shaking. The door was glowing. She could feel the choice pressing on her, like hands on her back, pushing her toward betrayal. But she dropped the knife. I won't do it, she said. Suddenly, everything stopped. The shadows froze. The house went quiet, and a new message appeared on the door. You have broken the rules. Then the door creaked open. Behind it, only blackness, and a voice whispered, if one will not choose, then both must fall. Lena turned to Nina. Run! But the floor beneath them cracked. A black hole opened. The house screamed, and both girls fell into the dark. Lena and Nina fell. They didn't scream. There was no air to scream into, just endless blackness all around them. It felt like they were falling for hours, through silence, through cold, through nothing. Then they landed, softly, on a floor made of black glass. They opened their eyes and found themselves in a huge, dark room. There were no walls, no ceiling, just endless space, filled with shadows and strange whispers. And in the center of the room stood the box. Not small now, it had grown. It was tall like a tree, and its surface was covered in strange symbols that moved like they were alive. The 7 tokens floated above it, spinning slowly. Lena got to her feet. Nina stood beside her. Where are we? Nina asked. I think we're inside the game now, Lena whispered. Then a deep, cold voice spoke. Not from the box this time, but from everywhere. You broke the rules, but you also broke the cycle. The voice echoed, ancient and powerful. Lena stepped forward. We didn't want to hurt each other. We didn't want to betray anyone. The game feeds on fear, on trust broken, on friendship destroyed. Nina shouted back. Then we're not giving you what you want. The box shook violently. The room flickered, showing images. Tasha falling into fire. Mark being taken by the unknown. Jordan swallowed by snakes. Alex surrounded by eyes, each one reliving their worst moment. Lena closed her eyes. No more. She took Nina's hand. End this together. Suddenly the tokens stopped spinning. The symbols froze. The whispers went silent. No one has ever refused the final choice. The ground cracked. A final token appeared, white pure, floating between them. Lena looked at it. "What is that?" Nina touched it. The voice answered, "The token of release. The only way out, but only one can take it." They looked at each other again. Then Lena smiled. "No, not this time." She turned and walked toward the giant black box. She climbed up the side of it, her fingers gripping the strange symbols. Nina shouted, "Lena, what are you doing?" "I'm ending the game." At the top of the box was a glowing red circle. Lena placed her hand on it. The voice screamed, "Stop. You do not understand what you are doing." But Lena didn't stop. She whispered, "I do." She looked down at Nina and smiled. Then she pushed her hand into the circle. There was a flash of white light, so bright it erased everything. The box cracked, the room shattered, and the game ended. Nina woke up in a hospital bed. The sky outside was blue. Birds were singing. She sat up slowly, her heart pounding. A nurse walked in. "You're awake. You've been missing for days." "Where's Lena?" Nina asked. The nurse shook her head. "You were the only one found, alone, on the side of the road near the old village." Tears filled Nina's eyes, but then she felt something in her pocket. She reached in and pulled out a white token. She held it tightly. "I'll never forget her," she whispered. "She didn't just end the game. She saved me." Outside, the wind blew gently through the trees. The village was quiet again. The house was gone, and the forbidden game had finally ended, or had it, back in the forest. The black box sat beneath the earth, waiting.